Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pash On Podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hi, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to another exciting podcast interview today. I'm very fortunate to have Chris Walsh. He's the president of Reynolds and Reynolds on today's podcast. We're going to dive into the Reynolds retail management system, the vision for the future of automotive retail. So let's get started. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So, Chris, first, I want to thank you for inviting me to speak at the Reynolds Retail Summit in Indianapolis. It was a great opportunity for me to share my thoughts on where things are going in regards to customer data platforms, but also to see the whole Reynolds team sharing your story for a single retail management system. And I'd like to start there. For dealers who may be a little unplugged and not connected with all the recent developments, you've made some acquisitions, you've been focusing on integration, there is a benefit of having one single retail management system. I know you've been working hard on that. How would you describe that from dealers who haven't seen the Reynolds platform in a while?
Yeah, well, I think that, we started down the path of a retail management system, several years ago, certainly pre-COVID. And it was, back when, the notion of, Windows-based platforms, right? So we made the decision to rebuild, our DMS from the ground up versus just, adding, kind of Windows layers or graphical user interfaces to it. So we made the decision to rebuild it from the ground up with the kind of notion that it needs to be built as one to work as one. That was, kind of the marketing tagline that, someone mentioned at some point, and it just kind of stuck. And that has really been our philosophy as we've, as we built our platform and as we, integrate things into our platform, is that it needs to be built as one, to work as one. So it's like the idea that integration is no longer sufficient. Things need to be really embedded and built as one to work as one. And that gives dealers, a better, I think better operational capabilities and efficiency capabilities than they've had before. And, hopefully the ability to provide a better consumer experience. And I think a better experience for the dealership personnel as well. We believe that, the utilization internally can have a great impact on the customer experience. So, and when we started doing that, we started looking at things like, keystrokes. How many keystrokes does it take to, let's say, open a repair order or, entering a VIN, those kinds of things. And, we found some alarming numbers, like entering a VIN, we found it was, up to 7 times to complete a deal. So you start looking at, doing 150 cars a month, times up to 7, times you're entering the VIN, and, too many keystrokes. And, we need to eliminate that or certainly scale it back. So we spent a lot of time, looking at those kinds of things. So if we can, make a service advisor, 5 or 8%, more efficient, what could that mean, to, things like shop capacity, and how could that, allow a dealership to serve more customers, but still do it really effectively and do all the service lane processes that they have today. So, really focusing on the workflow and how we can really streamline that. That's been, really kind of core to what we were doing in addition to the Retail Anywhere in building the retail management platform.
One other area that comes to mind is what I've seen is really an acceleration of innovation in regards to the online sales process with the acquisition of Gubagoo a number of years ago, and how the last time I saw the platform, how tightly integrated Gubagoo, the CRM, the desking experience, so that when the customer starts online and comes into the showroom, it's one consistent experience. You've labeled that Retail Anywhere. How important was the Gubagoo acquisition in being able to allow the consumer to do as much as they want, but yet not feel like they've wasted time online because the dealer kind of starts from zero in the showroom?
Yeah, I mean, the Google acquisition was really, core to everything we started doing around, digital retailing or modern retailing, whatever term you want to use. And, I think we collectively learned a lot, internally, and then, with, Brad Title and Ryan Austin, and how we, do just what you talked about, how we make this a seamless experience. And what we collectively learned, years ago is that, we needed to, make sure the math was right. So you can't have, two, three, or four different calculation engines. That's automatically going to translate into a poor customer experience when they move, into a brick and mortar experience from an online experience. We needed to make sure it was, again, highly integrated or even embedded, with things like desking, our CRM tool, certainly accounting functionality, that so that when the customer does, come in, it's just a continuation of that process that happened online. So it is a seamless transition from a digital experience to an in-person experience. And when they do come in the dealership that first time, it can't feel like to the customer that, this is the first time we've met. That's what's going to frustrate them, right? I mean, they want to feel like we've already been talking. You already have, information from me. You already kind of know, what I'm looking for, and whether you have it or not. And we've gone through some level of pricing discussions, whether it's payments, whether it's trade-in information, whatever it happens to be. So that was really important to us, as well as, the regulatory side. How do we make sure that, number one, the customer is who they say they are, when they're online, and number two, how do we, complete a transaction, that is compliant with, all the different, regulations and legislation that's out there. So you make sure you have a, regulatory compliant transaction.
Chris, when we all experienced COVID, there was a rush to get digital retailing working. Today, the dust has settled, and for a number of reasons, the percentage of transactions that are being done completely online are still under 10%, although some experts were predicting by 2024 it could have been 30 or 40 or 50%. I kind of laughed at those numbers, didn't, make a big fuss about it online because who really knows the future, but it's still a big decision. What are you seeing across the enterprise? I mean, we have some shared clients that are using your DMS, that are using your virtual retailing in a very tight way. And, I'm seeing less than 5% of people going all the way through. How do you make sense of that? Is it just a matter of our expectations were a little lopsided?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we COVID kind of accelerated certainly the thought process of digital, retailing, but it just hasn't really evolved. We're seeing less than 10% of customers, and I try to attend different industry events. I've been to your event several times, and I've been to some others, and the general consensus seems to be it's well under 10%. What we're seeing as far as people buying vehicles completely online. So there is that large percentage of people that are going to be doing some degree of analog shopping or just the brick and mortar experience. So we believe that that's going to continue for some time. I think the next 5 years, I think you'll see consumers do more online than maybe they're doing now. Maybe they take the process a little bit further, but they're still going to be going into a dealership, whether it's to they actually want to see and touch and sit in the vehicle. They want to do an actual test drive. Maybe they want to have some other conversations, internally about the transaction. So we think that's going to continue, for the next 3 to 5 years.
There's a couple of new products, strategies that, I picked up at the Reynolds Retail Summit that I know is going to be a focus at the booth at NADA. Autovision, cybersecurity, CDPs. So let's pick up on a few of those. I think that in 2024, not only with the new legislation about consumer data privacy, hacking, and data being held for ransom, What's your thoughts about how Reynolds can protect dealer data, provide insurance and coverage for these cyber threats? Because I think as well, our business model evolves to be more and more online, I think the attacks are going to be increasing. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that's one of the kind of key reasons why we made the Proton acquisition. Brad Holton built a great company, we believed, and Brad's got a pretty strong presence in the market. He's very well known. He's an expert in cybersecurity and IT infrastructure and all those things that we know a lot about. But Brad helped us get even better with it. So your point about the legislation is exactly right. You think about the stress that's being put on our customers and how they protect the data, whether it's inside the four walls of their dealership or as that data kind of is in transit to different endpoints. It becomes really, really important to make sure that that information is encrypted and that information is secure, especially when you're talking about whether it's PII or even non-sensitive PII, that that information is protected. So we view it as a responsibility to help our customers to protect that data, to protect them from any kind of legal matters that may result from not doing it. So that's been a real important acquisition for us, and we're even getting into the cyber insurance area. So where we have the ability to sell cyber insurance to our customers, and we're leveraging that through our AGWS acquisition and that organization, because it makes sense to have those kinds of conversations, the cyber insurance conversations, along with the other kinds of warranty and insurance conversations that they're having with Reynolds and AGWS customers. So that's been something that's been real important for us, and something that we're really pushing really hard. So if you want to learn more about that would be a great conversation. We'd love to have that conversation with anyone at NADA if they have the opportunity to stop by. The other one is on the CDP side, and as you mentioned, the data, we think that's important for kind of different reasons, right? So we certainly want to protect the data, but how can we provide more enhanced and cleaner data for our customers so they can make better decisions about marketing, so they can have more relevant conversations with customers. And we think that also helps with the transition from an online experience to an in-store experience. So the more data that we can provide, we think that that's going to help our customers be more effective, be more efficient, help them guide their customers to the right kind of transaction that works for that customer and works for the customer, but still maintain the level of control over the the profitability and the accuracy of the transaction for the dealership, because we knew that was something that they were concerned about.
Oh, for sure. And there is a lot of education that's still needed to understand why improved data hygiene, data enhancement is needed. And then the bigger question is, hey, if I have cleaner data, more accurate data, how do I properly use it? And I hope in 2024 to be leading the charge of developing some use cases that can help educate dealers on the reason why they should look into that, because in today's economic climate, dealers are looking for any level of efficiency to help offset rising floor plan costs and some of the slow retail environments. And that's why I wanted to bring up autovision. This is an opportunity for dealers to get their cars ready for the front line, be more efficient with their capital that's invested in vehicles. For dealers who are not familiar with autovision, give me a thumbnail on what the platform is doing and why this is another reason for dealers to come out to the booth at NADA.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all, obviously keenly aware of, the inventory, issues that we faced over the past, really 18 to 24 months. And, we're still kind of in it, in a way, because you bring in the whole, notion of EVs. And, I think if we all pay attention to what's going on, we see what the days of supply are, for EVs versus, hybrids or plug-in hybrids, and certainly, ICE vehicles. So it's still important, and it's even as inventory normalizes, it's still going to be important that you acquire the right vehicles that are going to hit the mark, for your customer base, your demographic, your OEM, your franchise mix that you have. So it's really going to be important that you are acquiring the right vehicles, and then once you acquire those vehicles, how do you get them through the reconditioning process and do the right things to them, so you can go from the acquisition mode to having that vehicle sitting on your lot or in your showroom as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible, with a sticker price on it. Because if you're doing that part right, you're going to sell that vehicle, you're going to turn your inventory more, you're going to be in a better cash position, I think, to do whatever cash is required to accomplish your growth goals. And then you can also get into the vehicle merchandising side of things, like how do we help you merchandise those vehicles and get the information out there across the different channels that you might use. So we're really excited what we can do as we think about that whole workflow, from acquiring a vehicle, getting the right vehicle at the right price, putting the right internal work into that vehicle, and then getting it on your lot, and getting that vehicle sold. So that's a workflow that we've really been wanting to get into for a little while, and we're really excited to work with the AutoVision team, and it's going to be really a core message for us at NADA this year, and something that we're gonna really try to have a lot of conversations about, because we think we can have really a tremendous impact in the areas I just mentioned for a dealer, and really help them increase their levels of success in that area.
Chris, as we're talking about new products, new acquisitions, I want to go back to something that you said, because I think there's some stereotypical belief system, whether it's your company, Cox, or CDK, that products get added and bolted on, and then things become unwieldy. I'm going to go back to your statement that you recognized that the core platform needed a refresh. Is that rebuild allowing products like AutoVision, Gubagoo, eventually CDP functionality to be a seamless workflow? Because what I want dealers to understand is that there is a new vision about this one platform and not one screen with 8 bolt-ons. Can we drill down on that? Because I'm not sure if dealers understand the commitment that you're making to not follow past bolt-on practices.
Yeah, so we don't even look at the whole notion of bolting something on. We don't even look at it that way. We feel like that's kind of an archaic way of doing it, and I know you do as well. We've had a lot of conversations about it. So when we acquire a company, we do look at making, you mentioned Gubagoo. So how can we make Gubagoo? Gubagoo becomes invisible. It doesn't look like it's this separate experience or this separate platform. It's just part of our the deal workflow, whether it's online or in store. So was there development work that had to be done to make that all happen? Well, of course there was, but the way we built the platform years ago allowed us to do the kinds of things that we're doing. And then we've also taken a different approach to from an acquisition perspective, right? So we obviously acquired Gubagoo, but sometimes acquiring a company isn't the right path to go down. Sometimes it's a partnership that we can come up with, and that partnership evolves. As an example, we entered into a partnership with Deskit, which is a Canadian desking and digital retailing platform, and that partnership evolved into an acquisition over the next 12 to 18 months. So we're really happy with what that has to offer. So the platform made a big difference for us for how we can embed and not take a bolt-on approach, but take a more embedded approach. And we're doing that with AutoVision right now. We've been working on that for a while as well, and we're real excited to show everybody where we're at with that, and we think dealers are going to be really excited when they see what we've done with AutoVision and how we've made that part of the retail management system.
Well, I'm excited. I'm also excited to kind of see how Reynolds addresses the real needs of data hygiene towards activation and personalized communication. One of the things I've learned in working on some CDP projects is that the need for clean data, updated data as an ecosystem isn't as well easy as I thought, because the question is who do you trust for vehicle registration data? Who do you trust for the best phone data? Who do you trust for the best email appends? And there's maybe a half dozen primary leaders in these conversations, but making it simple for dealers. And I'm really excited to see how Reynolds can add this additional functionality, this workspace where transactional data can be enhanced with current data to power better communication and marketing. And that's the key thing, better communication. I'd love to see the Reynolds retail management system power better text messaging, timed reminders, concierge experiences. This is what I have in mind for 2024. And so I can't wait to stop by the booth at NADA and see what you guys have been working on. Chris, if there was one thing that hasn't been said to the dealers who will be listening today, planning for NADA, or just, hey, I'm not going to NADA, but I want to make sure I have all the pieces I need to be as efficient as possible in my retail operations in 2024. What's one thing we haven't said that you'd like to challenge the dealers listening to today's podcast?
Well, I think, number one, if you're not able to come to NADA, I would tell you that, we will bring NADA to you. We're more than happy to bring our organization, the key people that need to be there, and show you what our capabilities are, in your dealership or someplace else that's convenient for you. But I think, for us, it's the, the acquisitions that were made. We talked about, AGWS, and we talked about, AutoVision. So, those are our two big ones. We talked about desking, so that would be for our Canadian customers and prospective customers. But I think looking at how we have added more core functionality to our retail management system to address what are the how are the needs are evolving, the needs that are emerging as new trends kind of develop in our industry. So what we can do for you from an operational perspective is a lot different than what we could do for you, even a year ago. So I think it makes sense, to come by and just to see what we have to offer and the new areas that we've gotten into, and what would that mean, to your organization and helping you accomplish your growth and your business goals.
Well said. And I also want to encourage the dealers who are listening today, if you really don't understand what a connected retail experience could look like, meaning presenting numbers, calc engines, payment on your website, and then the same experience in the store all the way through desking and the F&I process, make sure you get an updated demo of the Reynolds retail management system. I'm looking forward to NADA just to see what the current buzz is on the floor. I have no predictions, but I'll definitely be writing about my comments when we get back from NADA this year. And more importantly, for the dealers who are listening to this podcast, you should know that we have dozens of conversations with industry leaders updated on a regular basis to keep you informed with modern retailing. So if this is the first time you're listening to one of the podcasts, just search for the Brian Pash Podcast and you'll see all the great interviews that we have lined up. We're going to have an amazing lineup of podcast interviews in 2024, plus the Digital Marketing Strategies Conference in Austin, Texas, June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And of course, we'll be back in Palm Beach at the O Hotel and Resort in November for the Modern Retailing Conference. And I want to thank Reynolds for being a sponsor of those educational events. So without further ado, you have action to take. If you are a dealer looking for the most efficient way to run your business in 2024, don't forget to check out all the latest products that Reynolds and Reynolds has. So until next time, enjoy the close of your 2023 calendar year. And Chris and I hope to see you in 2024 at NATO. Thanks for listening in today.